Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, and our friends from CII, my faculty colleagues, dear students, to this afternoon session of exchange of ideas and learning. On behalf of our founder president, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, our chairman, Dr. Asim Chauhan, our Chancellor, Dr. W. Sadhamurthy sir, and all the members of the Amity family, sir, warmly welcome you to the center of learning. We are indeed very fortunate to have Mr. Banerjee amongst us today, who has been associated with this industry-led organization, Confederation of Indian Industries, for more than 3 decades. And has been at the helm of affairs of CII for almost a decade. He has been a part of the advisory board to the government on various issues and has been members of various councils and forums, which has helped India, the Indian government, to strengthen its ties with a number of countries. He has been instrumental in enhancing and strengthening the Indo-Chinese relations as well. Sir is with us as a key person, a part of an organization who has played a very, very pivotal role in guiding and advising the government of India in streamlining, in developing policies and helping the government of our country to develop its economic policies. Not only that, even contributes to the socio-economic development of our country. There's a huge to learn, a very humble person and a visionary by what I understand from the short interaction that we've had this morning. So we'll be very happy. May I request Jazala to read out Sir's profile, and we would love to have that interaction between you and the students, sir. Thank you so much.
You do not write your life with words. You write it with actions. What you think is not important, it is only important what you do. And our honorable guest is a man of action. As ma'am has already told you, that sir has been with CII for about 3 decades. I would just tell very short about CII that CII is having 65 offices including 9 centers of excellence in India and 10 overseas offices in Australia, China, Egypt, France, Germany, Singapore, South Africa, UAE, UK and USA, as well as institutional partnerships with 355 counterpart organizations in 126 countries. CII serves as a reference point for Indian industry and the international business community, and as Director General, Sir is responsible for overall operation of CII. Sir is a postgraduate MS in Economics with a specialization on Economics of Planning and Econometrics from the University of Calcutta. Earlier, Sir did his graduation from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta in Economic Honours. Prior to his appointment as Director General, Sir has held several senior positions in CII. Sir has been responsible for important areas of work including the sectoral verticals, manufacturing, services, agriculture and life sciences sectors and the SMEs. He has led key policy work of CII in the area of economic policy, financial services, and corporate governance. He was also the first executive director of the National Foundation of Corporate Governance (NFCG), an organization set up by the Ministry of Company Affairs, Government of India, and he continues to be in the Board of Trustees and Governing Council of NFCG as a member. Earlier, Sir has served as head of CII's regional operation in the northern, southern, and western region. Over the years, Sir has worked out of the CII headquarters in New Delhi for several years and has also been based at Kolkata, Chennai, Mumbai, Chandigarh, and Ahmedabad. Sir was also in Bangalore to initiate the Center of Excellence of the Indian Machine Tool Manufacturers Association IMTME, which is a state-of-the-art center for training, conventions and trade fairs. He is an advisory board member of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council and member of board of the Global Innovation and Technology Alliance GITA. Sir is a director in the Singapore India Partnership Foundation, the managing trustee of the National Foundation for Corporate Governance, and a director at the Invest India. Sir has been honored with the China-India Friendship Award by the Chinese Premier Wen Jiabo for his contribution towards the development of bilateral ties between India and China. Sir has also been conferred with the decoration of Knight Commander of the Order of Queen Isabel by His Majesty the King of Spain in recognition of his most meritorious achievements and exceptional contributions towards promoting relation between India and Spain. Sir is also the Secretariat for several bilateral CEOs Forum constituted by the Government of India. These include forums with Australia, France, Russia, Canada, Malaysia, Indonesia, Myanmar, Japan, Sweden, South Africa, amongst others. May I now request our honorable guest, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, to please step forward and take over the dais and enlighten our students on contemporary business in India. Sir, please.
The beginning was to put you on the back foot by being embarrassed by reading out your CV, which I have gone through, but I thank you for that very warm introduction, which was not required, but thank you very much. Vice Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, Dean, members of the faculty, fellow students and my colleagues from CII. I'm indeed most grateful for this warm invitation which came about in a free phone call which I received from a colleague, a very old friend of mine. When I spoke to him almost after about 30 years. We've never spoken to each other in between. Chandrajit called me to say that whether I'll be able to come to Amity, to Raipur. I sort of said yes immediately because I've never been to Raipur. I'm very, very shy of that and I'm very embarrassed by that. But I've never come. I've been to almost all cities of India, but not to Raipur. And I was very guilty of it. And when this phone call came, I didn't even check my diary. I said, yes, I'll come. But then I realized that I was not in that country on those dates. So I think I called back to say that the dates don't unfortunately match because I'll be not in the country, but then I can come sometime later. So he asked me for a date and I came back last Sunday and I spent a day in Delhi and I've come here yesterday night to be here and it was very nice to receive that letter from Dr. Dave inviting me officially, and then I accepted it because I wanted to come. You heard that 65 offices, the one office that I did not visit was Raipur. So I had to come here and I had to also interact with the new state government. So I'm delighted to be here, honored to be with. I think I'll learn much more from the questions that I get rather than what I can speak in the next few minutes to you. I've been asked to speak on the changing business landscape and I will try and make an attempt. You know, during lunch when I was having with the faculty members of this esteemed university, one of the things that I learned was two things, very important things that I learned was this university has 70+% students from the local area, which is from Chhattisgarh and Raipur. I was delighted to hear that. The second important thing that I learned from your Vice Chancellor was the students, and he has worked across the world, across the country, and he said that the students here, and he complimented all of you, he said that the students here are perhaps the brightest that the country can have. Indeed, most delighted to hear that, Vice Chancellor, and indeed delighted to interact with these bright students of Amity. I couldn't come here last week, as I mentioned, and I was traveling, and I was in Davos, the annual meeting of the World Economic Summit, and I've been going there for the last 12 years continuously, and I couldn't get out of that definitely. So, but we had about 100 odd industry CEOs of the country which participated from India into this forum, which gets attended by 40 odd heads of state, about 300 different ministers from different parts of the world. And given the subject that I talk about, I must say that the subject which was given to me has so much of relationship with my stay for the last 1 week over there in this particular annual meeting, their 49th annual meeting. The next year will be their 50th anniversary. And the entire discussion was really dominated by the emerging shape of globalization today, and a lot on disruption, Industry 4.0, which makes it very interesting when I was given this subject to talk about, which is on changing business landscape, primarily about what's happening in India. But more of Davos later. I'll come to talking about what I learned from there to share with you, and to trigger your minds to ask me some thoughts and give me some inputs. But as I say that, we saw India to be still a bright spot somewhere in the world, and where the IMF, as you know, has talked about a growth rate which we will be easily clocking at about 7.5% and 7.7%. Those are the predictions that we have over the next few years, where the world is really slowing down to a great extent. And we talk about becoming a $5 trillion economy by 2025. But is that enough? It is not. We think that, and I personally strongly believe that India has to grow, and India needs to grow anywhere between 9 to 10% plus in the year on year for decades. And that's required because of what we are growing at, the type of growth rate that we have, which is impressive, which is the largest, which is the fastest growing large economy, which is great, but we will be where China is today, 15 years later. But that's not good. So we need to really step up. I'll talk about some dimensions that I see and I've picked up in the last few years, and I'll talk about them a little bit. One is called the global exosystem, or the mega trends that are really shaping the new global external business environment. The second is the domestic mesosystem, if one can call it, or redefining the national operation framework for business, what the business is at the national level we are going through. And the third, which is very, very critical, is the micro level, is the firm level microsystem, which is about the competitiveness of our business community, the competitiveness of our firms in India. And in today, you heard about CII a little bit in the introductions. Our focus is primarily creating Indian businesses which will be competitive over a period of time and which can be globally competitive. And today, it's no good only to be competitive in India, but it is so very critical and important for industry and the firms to be competitive across the world, because you are living in a global community. So let me first take up the point number one, which is let's look at the global trade. And I talked about, as I mentioned, about the global exosystem. So let's talk about the global trade. You know what's happening? Over the last few years, if you see, the global trade in terms of, there has been a shrink in terms of its, the output of the world that is being traded. And it's a very important phenomenon to watch, because, and one of the reasons why it is happening is because countries like us, the emerging economies are becoming very strong. The demand from those emerging economies are becoming quite noticeable, quite important, and therefore the consumption therein is also quite sizable. And that really puts the number of goods being traded lower, and therefore the global trading system is in in global trade in goods coming down, but that brings up and throws up a different challenge and an opportunity, and the challenge and opportunity is on the services. Today, goods and services, manufacturing and services itself, that fine line is becoming more and more fuzzy as I touched upon Industry 4.0. And as you see it, therefore, services out of India is becoming much more. And if you see the scale in services having risen to a substantial extent, and therefore invisibles would actually cater a lot in terms of terms of business domination and trade domination. The second one is, of course, extremely critical again, is on technology and digital acceleration. And this is something which, as all of you know very well and appreciate very strongly, how things are changing. What was technology that would come in, that would get ushered in 10 years, is getting ushered in 10 days, 10 months. So there is a huge shift and there's actually a paradigm shift. And firms which are able to cope up with that are the firms which are going to survive. Be it the areas which are, and most of all of you would probably be appreciating it, be it artificial intelligence, be it blockchain, be it additive manufacturing, be it machine learning, robotics, and many others. So one of the things that we have now formed when we talk about how business is transitioning is a center which we have created on digital transformation. So to see just not the large companies which are being able to do it for themselves, but for any large company to be supported, it needs that change. So that today many large companies, and in fact most large companies, are actually working with us to see how mid-sized companies, the small enterprises get into the fold of digital transformation. The factory of future, they say, would look like probably with one large machine, and that large machine will produce whatever would have been produced in the factory, whatever the factory needed to be produced, that one machine will produce it. Being a smart and learning entity, that will be connected to computers and all of that, and will be constantly producing that. And it will have one man, and it will have one dog. And the job of the dog is to keep the man away from the machine, and the job of the man will be to give food to the dog to make it survive. So that, they say, is, and this was very strongly visible in various international concepts of what could be a sign of a factory of the future. But I'm saying that is because it means not in terms of jobs. It means not in type of term that what artificial intelligence, Industry 4.0 might make factories of the future look like. So what is the scenario? What is the scenario of jobs, say for instance, in the world? It's not as grim as what that factory of future projects. It is actually just the opposite. Every time you've had an industrial revolution, the world has thought that jobs would go. Jobs have never gone. Industry 4.0 will not take away jobs. The artificial intelligence, what we talk about, will not take away jobs. And I'm quite a firm believer of it. And I believe that it will actually throw out new jobs. You heard about that machine, which will actually put up, which will be connected to computers, which will be producing all of that. All of that is actually going to be enabled by human beings. And all of that will be, so that particular one machine will be actually also built by human beings. And the type of jobs that will throw out, this type of factory of the future will throw out, and the entire ecosystem that will throw out will be different types of jobs. So I'll come back to that more probably as we go along and as I talk. So there will be obviously a lot of economic reordering, if one can say, in the future as we go along. And as you will see, the share of, coming back to the point that I was mentioning, the share of the advanced economies in the world will sort of decrease in the total GDP with a rise in some of the rise of the contribution of the others in the world GDP coming up very strongly. So the Asian emerging economies will see their GDP in purchasing power parity terms going up from somewhere around 22% as it was in 2007 to easily about 38% in 2023. So that is the type of changes that we are seeing both in the global ecosystem, in a very larger ecosystem in the globe, as well as the challenges and the opportunities that it throws up for India and Indian farms. India has been reforming, very strong reform, and I'm not going to go into details because I do presume that most of you are connected to it, be it the huge tax reforms that we have gone through, which is a very, very important one. We also talk today in the context what we talk about ease of doing business, and I'm sure all of you are hearing what India is doing and what India is not unable to do as far as ease of doing business is concerned. Many good stories of how India has climbed up its rankings in the world, how states are competing today. There's something called, there are terms which have come in which have practical applications in when we talk about cooperative federalism or competitive federalism, how states are competing, how the center and the states are collaborating, and also, of course, how dynamics are changing in terms of the type of FDI India is drawing and the type of opening up in our FDI regime that we have seen over a period of time, or even be it in, you have heard new terms which have come in terms of insolvency and the banking code, the entire new ecosystem that has got created in the country on startups, so on and so forth. So there is a huge change that is coming in, as you are seeing, and these changes, these reforms that are coming in, are actually going to be a very, very important and critical way the firms will be able to handle themselves. And what I am saying that is there will be many firms which will not be in business and many which will come in. I talked about the startups, and we've seen this type of new world order in terms of global trading opportunities, in terms of the industry 4.0, in terms of the type of ecosystem that we are bringing in terms of our policy reforms. We will have huge competition also between our firms, and there will be a new normal that we will see very, very soon. But all these reforms have come with its own complexities, and we'll have to get out of that. Most of the reforms is something which has its own momentum of moving, say for instance in startups. But as we go along, you will see many more tweaking of our policy framework to enable firms and companies get themselves to champion. I spoke earlier about Davos, and I'll speak about now about what I really picked up. 4 or 5 important points for you to ponder on and see what it means for us. 2019, what I picked up in Davos was the economy is going to be bumpy. Politically, the world is going to be going through a lot of trouble, as we are all seeing. We are seeing Brexit. We are seeing how America is really coming up. The trade wars that we are seeing are quite strong. So there is going to be this challenge of economic uncertainty, political upheaval. So companies are holding back for some time on fresh investments to come. That was one message which I sort of kept getting on over there. The second part of it is quite different, is how we are seeing more workforce engagement by firms and companies around the world, India no exception. Workforce engagement, so women empowerment, engaging with the workforce to understand, because getting them to be involved in your firm, getting them to be involved in the policy direction that the firm will take, or the priorities that the firm will do, are going to be very, very critical in times to come. I spoke about 4IR, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and AI. And I saw that we talked about something around by 2030. Artificial intelligence is already everywhere, really, so to speak. It was there in every session, it was there in every discussion. But by 2030, we're talking new type of world order in business. And the challenges of precision medicine, so to say, is going to be so critical. And the funny point that I heard and I understood was that there will be 11 billion people in the world by 2050, and by 2030, dying is optional. So that's good news or bad news. That's for you to decide whether you would like to live in a world where dying will be optional. So those were in sort of a capsule as to what I picked up in Davos. But the challenges really stem from there for India. What is this? When we talk about, I talked about 9% growth, 10% growth. Will we be able to make that growth at the firm level and business level commitment to see how we can make that inclusive in terms of, will the growth be inclusive? Will we be able to provide the type of jobs that the country needs or the world needs when we talk about a 9% or 10% growth? A man on the street is sometimes, if you ask and if you tell him that we are growing at 7% or 8%, it really doesn't mean much to him unless he is able to see that it is making a huge difference to him in terms of livelihood. And I believe that growth can bring in that livelihood. And I do believe that growth can be inclusive if we are responsible. And that with that comes in, therefore, the issue of sustainability, whether there will be huge pressure on our resources as we look at. So if we are able to be prudent, we can use our resources effectively, very, very effectively, to see that the fruits of growth are really well borne by the type of pressure that our resources will have. We need to take along training skills in that entire ecosystem, and then we will find that the future, you heard about the demographic dividend of India, that will truly be dividend and not a real challenge that we have in our demographies. Having said that, so what is the role that we see of different stakeholders in this community that we have between be it industry, be it government, be it civil society, be it students, be it teachers, be it any one of us in the country? So as I was looking at this as a quick capsule, I really jotted down 6 quick points between industry and government especially. And one was, of course, to be in business, to be in the world, to survive, we really need to look at boosting Industry 4.0 and how manufacturing companies should really reconfigure themselves and to the adoption of new technologies in terms of their management strategies, especially, and also their digital readiness for innovation capabilities. That's going to be very critical. So R&D, logistics, design capabilities, all of that. So all of that gets bunched into one sort of a basket. The second basket, if I can say, is on building global leadership in identified sectors. And I say identified sectors because there are old words when we talk about sunrise industries and all. So, when we worked with the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, which is called the DIPP in the Government of India, we looked at 8 new age manufacturing sectors. I'll take quickly some names, and 12 services sectors, champion sectors, so to say. And in the manufacturing, we included sectors like genomics, electrical vehicles, robotics, and so on and so forth, which are a part of the Industry 4.0 system. And also in the services sector areas like, of course, IT and ITES, hospitality, medical value travel, which is medical tourism, transport and logistics, accounting and financial services, and so on and so forth. So these are identified because these are the ones which can enable the future sectors to grow in India, which does not actually come in the way of certain very strong labor-intensive employment-generating sectors like textiles or, very importantly, or even food processing, where large number of small companies get involved to provide a large employment factor in the country. The third area which I talked about was employment during the course of my speech, and which is extremely important because one factor which is coming out very strongly with AI, with artificial intelligence and for Industry 4.0 is this entire thing of HMI, which is the human machine index, so to say. So it's the human, the algorithms that's going to be that's going to get developed is through what human beings at least would put into the machine in terms of data, and that sort of a combination is going to be extremely important, and that's what is going to result in the new types of employment that we are going to generate. And when we talk about new types of employment, I must allude to the fact that today, when we talk about jobs, it's just not employment in the traditional sense of the term. I see jobs more as livelihoods. And when I say livelihoods, I include the new types of livelihoods that have come in. Say, for instance, with the advent of new types of companies, say, for instance, Amazon and Flipkart, the type of people getting affiliated to it. The fourth important area that I have noted is this very, very critical initiative that India needs to take and firms need to do is to create India brands worldwide. We have very few Indian brands worldwide, brands which have been grown in India, brands which have become worldwide famous, and that's going to be the critical challenge and something that we will need to develop from industry. And fifth point is, of course, scaling up the competitiveness and productivity of the Indian small and medium companies, the SMEs. One of the biggest success stories of India, say for instance, to talk about, is the auto ancillary industries. When Maruti came in and when it had to develop its auto ancillary base, we started a journey. And you know, if India can boast of forming some of the best worldwide companies, worldwide auto ancillary companies, which is the best in the world, which developed because we created that ecosystem of ancillary companies on the auto sector, which are globally competitive. And today, some of the mid-sized auto ancillary companies are actually acquiring, buying, investing in countries in Europe. And they are very successfully expanding their business in Europe. And that's the type of depth our auto ancillary industry has developed. So that's what's going to be the challenge, taking it into other sectors as we get new types of industry. When we talk about defense, India becoming a defense manufacturing hub, and so on and so forth. The last point on that is R&D, and I did talk about how R&D itself, if India has to succeed in manufacturing in India, making in India, I think one of the biggest challenges of India would be to see how not just the global headquarters of R&D are located in India, but Indian companies itself increase their spend on R&D, and that's something that we are again talking very strongly with our industry partners, with our members, with our companies. So what is it in it that we would see for this community, the students here, for instance, to really look at very seriously? And I think that there's few points that I would see that they play a role as they get into either educational institutions or in corporate India or in other walks of life, be it politics, be it administration, where anywhere. So if one looks at those, I see that we need to really look at the entity with which you will be engaged in future having certain values, and I think that's going to be the most critical challenge when we talk about how we are changing in the world. And number one is, of course, ethical practices, and I'll come to that a little bit. Globalization, of course, I talked about. We need to have that global mind frame, global attitude, whichever walk of life we select in terms of, as I mentioned, those sectors, be it. Third, of course, is technology. The use of technology, the adoption of technology, and the zeal to really make and to have a pipeline which will be able to imbibe the type of technologies that are coming up in the world. Good corporate citizenship is perhaps related to the first point of ethics, but comes up has a much larger connotation, which I will expand a little bit on. Having said that. If I talk about the global political developments that one is seeing, when I talk about globalization, and in the context of Indian industry, it's going to be there is always a scenario one, there is a scenario two, and a scenario three, which emerges in a context of uncertainty. I'll give you 2 points that what I mean from that line of mine. One is, you are seeing more and more protection coming in the world. You are seeing how China is having its own challenges by bringing its economy slowing down, it's bringing in tariffs and non-tariff barriers for you to enter. You are seeing the USA talking about its tariffs. So what should be the way Indian firms, and I'm not talking about Indian government, the Indian government is negotiating its policy framework. But if you really look at this, why I talked about globalization was, you have to be in those countries. That auto ancillary which is invested in Europe is winning. If you are investing in the CLMV countries, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Myanmar, or if you're investing in a country in Indonesia, if you're investing in Africa, if you're investing in those firms and those entities which are able to make those inroads are going to be winners, because if you are producing there and if you are producing in America, if you are selling to South America, it's a good winning strategy for you. That's globalization. So globalization is just not only manufacturing for the world, but manufacturing around the world. It's not servicing, but servicing from different locations. So that's a very, very critical point that we need to keep in mind. And if you see how Indian companies have to keep scenarios, which I mentioned in mind, is today we have invested heavily into the United Kingdom. Our companies have heavily, steel companies, car companies, the largest investor over there. So if we have invested heavily, we have to also keep in mind our strategy, say for instance if Brexit or not Brexit. So what happens over there? So with globalization comes challenges, but with that challenges comes your navigational skills. And that's one big change that we see in the business landscape of the country. I spoke about ethics and I spoke about corporate governance. And this is going to be an extremely important area of our commitment to the nation. And no nation can be built if these two factors of ours are missing. I spoke it in the context of growth rate. I spoke it in the context of the business entity itself. We have seen huge global shakeouts. We are seeing challenges in India of ethical or not so ethical practices in our corporate sector. And that leaves a big challenge in our mind, because today's role model could not be tomorrow's hero. And that's where I think we need to stand tall as far as corporate India is concerned. And I think and it is not just going to be the regulatory structure which can govern the corporate, which can govern corporates. So sometimes in India, we have seen in 1998, around that time, when Southeast Asia faced a huge challenge on the financial services sector, we stood very strong on governance. And when we brought in corporate governance at around that time in 1998, it was not through a regulatory mechanism, but it was through a voluntary mechanism of Indian corporates that we brought in corporate governance. So it is that challenge to be higher than the curve in governance, which is going to be very critical for staying ahead in global competition. And today, when I talk about the corporate social responsibility side, which I spoke about at the end, is also going to be very critical, because in 1980s, when we spoke about corporate social responsibility, when we spoke in 1990s about corporate social responsibility, it did not make business sense. The understanding that corporate social responsibility makes immense business sense came into India in around the early 1990s. There were some islands of excellence when we built towns like Jamshedpur, again like another corporate entity. There were a huge amount of corporate governance or corporate social responsibility rather coming in over there. But at the same time, the understanding of corporate social responsibility, the dividend that it really brings back to the corporate, the shareholder value that it brings along, has become very strong and established over the last 2 decades. And that's something which, again, companies which have been able to do it well, and the companies which will do it well are the ones which are going to take things forward. So, as I wind up, I'll talk about a couple of other areas where I would like your comments on. We spoke a little bit about CII, where the institution to which I belong, and to combat all of these challenges, these opportunities, a whole lot of opportunities that are there, we have made certain investments in certain areas. So, I spoke about the center that we had created on digital transformation. And I also spoke about the investment that we are making, or the focus that we are giving to areas of making ourselves competitive. And when I said competitive, I meant firms. Definitely I meant firms and corporate India, but I also meant, and I strongly meant, of course, beyond firms, beyond the corporate India. So we have a center on green, called the Green Business Center, which operates out of Hyderabad. There are about 100 professionals working. And I'm mentioning this not to sort of project CII, that's not the intention, but to understand how things have changed in India, and how things are changing, and how you can play a huge part in that change process. India today is a proud home of, is the second largest in the world, and I don't know how many of you know that, is the second largest in the world in terms of green buildings and homes in the world, second only to the United States. The amount of number of green homes that we have is number 2 to that. That particular institution started that work. Today you find many buildings, many institutions, many companies rated green, platinum rated or gold rated or silver rated. So we started that process, which has been a big movement, and today we are seeing green cities coming up. So that's what this particular center, that's the investment department. The second one is again based out of Delhi, called the Center for Excellence on Sustainable Development, which is actually working to bring down the carbon footprints of Indian companies and the type of spend that they are doing in their balance sheet. We check and we counsel them to increase their footprints, to cut emission, to cut carbon footprints around the world. In fact, we therefore took over the secretariat of something called the International Solar Alliance, which was signed during the COP in Paris, and where we've got all the countries together, and this particular institution is holding that. The third important area, and I spoke to the Vice Chancellor and the faculty team, is on water. The challenge of water, and all of us, though cliche, is talked about that the third world war will be fought on water. It's true, the challenge of water is phenomenal in the country. So what we are doing is to see, while the biggest wastage of water takes place in agriculture, but being an industry institution, I was not very keen that our first attack should be on agriculture, on wastage of water. So we wanted industry to behave itself, we wanted municipalities to behave itself, we wanted to turn districts which are water negative into water positive. So there are certain, this particular institute works on that, and we do believe firms have a huge role to play in cutting down the type of water wastage and recycle water. The fourth is this particular center, this particular city, this particular state has a huge role to play in, is making our logistics simpler and efficient. Today you are in the heart of the country, and I think this particular center could, we have a logistics center based out of Madras in Chennai, and we are very keen that we are able to have its footprints in this part of the country, in this particular city. So we'll work on that. But importantly, today it takes 14 days to say a good produce in somewhere in Punjab to reach the ports in Bombay in the western part of India. We want to bring that to 14 hours. The country, we're working towards it, but again, logistics is going to something which is going to make us efficient, and we are focusing on that again for competitiveness. The fourth one is on small-scale industry. So what we do is we look at clusters, small clusters, clusters of 15-20 companies, geographical clusters, and sectoral clusters. What I mean by that, geographical clusters could be in one particular area. It could be a Chandigarh or a Ludhiana, or it could be a Coimbatore or a Madurai. Sectoral clusters like a Tirupur cluster of textiles, those type of. So that's the metrics that we do to make those 15-20 companies efficient, energy efficient, cost efficient, export possibility. So digitally competitive. So that's what we are trying to pump into the mid-sized companies, which I said is going to be a very important area. The fourth area, which again Vice Chancellor gave me a lot of advice on to work on, and I will, is in the area of agriculture and food processing in this part of the country and here. We have a center of excellence on agriculture, and that center of agriculture excellence on agriculture and food processing is something that we would like to be dovetailed with this particular city, this particular state, where we can see, we can build farmers' capacity, we can build efficiency in our food and crops and productivity, and connect them to the market. Another next point of the center that we have created is called the Institute of Quality. The first Deming Prize in India, which went to a company for quality, came out of was counseled by this particular institute, and it was the fourth in the world, the Deming Prize, and that was one of our two-wheeler companies of India, and their ancillary again. So what a fantastic, today India houses some of the best quality competitive companies of the world. And I think that's a huge outcome of quality consciousness amongst our corporate CEOs, which have been able to, and today we are working, this particular Institute of Quality is working with educational institutes, with governmental educational institutions, and governmental departments to make them strong in terms of quality. The other one is on manufacturing, which is based out of Bombay, and we are trying to develop leaders, future leaders for manufacturing CEOs and manufacturing companies, future leaders. And we have a huge collaboration with Japan, which is known for its prowess on quality and manufacturing. And the last, which is most important for all of us, which is nearby, which is in Calcutta, which is called the Center for Leadership, Building. So these are the areas that we are trying to influence on to grow, and we'd like yours to always contribute to it. And I'm sure with the huge dividend that India has in its resources of young people, we have a unit over here in Raipur, and I request them to come and spend time with all of you to again learn from you. It's a group which we have in CII called Young Indians. And I was a founder member of that many years ago when I was young, which I lost quite some time back to be that. in that category, and but we started it in 2001 or 2002. And that particular group is known as Young Indians, part of CII. It is spread around the world. It has chapters in Northeast, it has chapters in Raipur, it has chapters all over the world, country, and it has global alliances across the world to the youth of the world. It has, of course, young entrepreneurs. It has family business members from the promoters. It has young professionals. It has young politicians. It has young media people. It has young students. There is a students network in that. So all of that are present in that YI system of CII, and they actually help vision a very strong India. And one of the things that we vision very closely with corporate India, with with the academia and with other stakeholders in the country is called India at 75, which is what India is going to be in 2022. So that's a very strong visioning exercise which is done in collaboration with our young Indians, and I'd like all of you also to contribute and work towards a very, very strong and a super India in the years to come. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving such a thought-provoking and knowledgeable special talk. Yes, we came to know about the exosystem, mesosystem, and the microsystem with very good examples. The job will not be less, or it will not be taken from the people, but yes, the whole ecosystem will change. And instead of the manual labor, now it will change to skill to man artificial intelligence. That is the future which is coming very soon. Moving forward, I think many of the audience might be having questions in their mind. So I would request the audience having questions to please raise their hand.
Sir, can further rationalization of income tax boost consumerism? Sir, what are your expectations regarding this in the upcoming budget?
Do you think, sir, is there anything like which will boost the real estate in like which will change the interest rate, like for example for housing loan?
Sir, my question to you, sir, if preferential banking is directly related to the size of the bank, do you support bank merger?
I'm at least glad that Professor Pandey is appreciating the trouble that I will be having in answering some of these questions that you have put. Let me attempt to answer a few as much as I can. I'd like to pick up the second question on income tax first. The tax. It's an important question in the terms of whenever, if you will go back into your empirical data, whenever taxes, rates, etc. have been reduced, the tax receipts have gone up in the country. So when you have moderated tax, your actually receipts have gone up. So it's a very important thing, an important point to note. And that's what we actually been working with the government very strongly to say, moderate the taxes, there will be more enterprise. Moderate taxes, more people will pay income tax. So, which will actually not only boost consumption, but that would be one of the reasons for the higher receipts of taxes. But also, it brings in a lot of compliance. So the incentive not to comply goes down as your tax rates. At one point in time, before most of you were born, before all of you were born, we were born, was when we had a 70% type of tax on income in the country. So, that's the time when people had a huge incentive to not pay tax. Today, when the taxes, the rates have come down, the incentive to avoid is. So, but with that comes in what I was speaking, the issue of the importance and the issue of self-governance, so to say. So, India is going through a situation and will go through a situation where there will be more compliance, more people will pay taxes, more people will have to learn how to pay taxes. Now, much of it will also happen when you see the fruits of paying taxes coming back. So, I was somewhere in the world, I was talking to a Danish lady, a lady from Denmark, and their taxation was saying 60%. And I said that, wow, 60% tax, but she said that we're so willing to pay that 60% because we get back so much in return. Free medical, free education, free X, free Y, free Z, and of highest quality. And I get back not only notional free, but actually free of the best quality. So there is no pain in paying that tax for me as well as for my future generation. So that's I wanted to give a longish reply to that tax question. Bank merger, whether we say it should happen or not, it will happen. You will see shakeouts there. You will see bank mergers there. Market dynamics will play and should play, and there has to be more of that coming in. And this is not the type of space that the banking sector can play around with. That's not market economics. And I'm sure that there is need for many more mergers in between. Many are in the pipeline, as you would be seeing, and it's the way to go. Coming back to the steel and the power sector question that was mentioned, especially in relation to Chhattisgarh, this is a very transitionary time for many sectors, and steel and power. So, I'll take a couple of examples. When we were talking about this huge influx of steel from China, and many of us were getting hurt, and many companies were talking about that there should be an anti-dumping duty on China. There were another round of companies which came to us to say that you all are positively considering doing something with the steel coming in from China. But why are you all doing this? Why are you saying the government to do this? Look at the challenge that we are going through. Why are these people saying so? Because they are not getting a particular type of steel which is produced only outside of India, and they need that steel to make their machine or their machine tool, or the lead machine or whatever, the CNC machine that they are operating, or the textile machinery that they are wanting to make over here, or the automobile or the car that they are wanting to make over here. So number one challenge is whether you have been able to increase the basket of manufacturing steel, the types of steel that are required. It's not just one type of steel, there are many types of steel that is required by the Indian industry, and whether you are producing it, and whether you have been able to diversify. And then you attack China. And second, so there's another school of thought. The second is, well, I'm getting it cheaper, so I'm making machines which you are buying. So I'm giving you machines which are of a lower cost. And if you are putting that duty, then I'll produce machine at a higher cost. So you will buy machine at a higher cost. So you have views and counter views. And unfortunately for CII, we have the steel producers and the steel makers both to come around the same table. We have to do that conflict management and come out. The reason I'm saying such a long reply is not because there's no straight-jacketed answer. The answer is there is a role for the government to do. There's a lot of role for us to do. Government will have to do its policy ecosystem, but when it comes to the power sector, when it comes to the steel sector especially, many of our people whom I will be meeting in the evening will be from these two sectors, from the industry. And there is pain there. There is pain there, there is genuine pain there because of loss of business, because of loss. So there is intervention to be done by the government, which we will obviously take up in terms of ease of them doing business in Chhattisgarh, and much that can be done. But there is also a lot that comes from the sector itself in terms of thinking ahead, and in terms of diversifying, in terms of investing in future technologies in both these sectors. Both these sectors, it is very critical. The last point was on the real estate sector. Who doesn't want to, real estate sector in our survey, in one of the studies which CII did on the research, can actually trigger 272 different other sectors which can be triggered off with the growth of the real estate sector. So that's a trickle effect, that multiplier effect that the real estate sector can have. And that's the reason why we were pushing for real estate sector reforms. RERA is one of them. And we would, through that, be able to see the growth of that sector to a great extent. Having said that, whether or not we like it, we all wanted houses, we all wanted our houses to be for ourselves. Where Indians are very emotive to have land, and after land, a house, if not a house, a flat, we are very emotive about it. In many parts of the world, people do not want to own a car. Today, of course, youngsters like you love fancy cars, but then many of them are not even wanting to own it because it comes to your doorstep with just a phone call away. So many are actually not even in the rest of the world are not even planning to even own a real estate to maintain that real estate. They stay in a real estate. So, but I said that because whether the pricing in India was the right pricing of the real estate, or whether the bubble has burst and we have to wait for another normal that I said, when I was speaking, a new normal of pricing in the real estate sector. But yes, real estate sector needs to be boosted. Areas have been worked upon. We are working on, as I said, reforms. This sector was unfortunately a sector which was covered with a lot of black money and cash. So that is, it takes a lot of pain for that to go out. And we are seeing the first flush out of that type of cash transactions, bringing in more transparency. Again, that point of bringing in the tax rates, whether you talk about the various taxes that come around the real estate to really be moderated enough to make it affordable and to make it realistic. And it was again market forces playing at prices, because you and I were so emotive to get that flat, to get that apartment, to get that land. So government took full advantage of it because the government's earning was quite dependent on it. Now that we have reached a stage where we can have these type of moderations, which probably see a new normal and a much more cleaner real estate sector emerging, through which those two separate sectors can be sort of focused on. So I think reforms will continue in that sector, especially as you've seen through radar.
Sir, India loses 15% of its GDP from logistical inadequacy. So what are your suggestions to cope these challenges?
Very ready with an answer. They said that this is a very important question, and it depends on how you take it. But let me attempt all the questions, and let me try and go in this order, because one question appealed to me was the one on visa, which some you asked, whether visa is affecting. We are an institution, which is obviously you heard lots of. So we normally send our heads of different offices that you heard, those 10 offices that we have abroad, from India. Our staffers go out, head them for 3 years, they come back, they go to another country, they head there, come back. So we have that rotational system, and we send our staffers. So the UK office of CII, which was started in 1990, we were changing our head 5 years back. And when the new visa regime in the UK came up, and they were not granting visa to this lady who was being transferred to head our London office, and they were saying that we need to employ somebody locally. We have local employment, so Chinese work in our China office, the British working in our London office. But the head of the office we normally send from India. They understand CII, they understand India. Therefore, we said they're not giving us the visa of this girl. So ultimately it went up to number 10, Downing Street. And we had, of course, being an institution of our kind, we could raise it to that level. And of course, by the time she got the visa was 2.5 years was over, and within the third year we had to transfer her. She's now heading our US office. So it took 2.5 years, and after that they apologized to us. They said that we have embarrassed us, why have we taken it to that high level? So it's a big issue, and today we have taken up this entire thing. This is a huge issue of migration versus immigration, which has come up in countries like UK. I mean, I might be using a very strong word, quote unquote, and not to be really taken up. It's somewhere we have tried to fool the system by saying that this is a particular skill that this person has, which is actually not the type of skill that person has, and have sent the person there. It is something which China, we have blamed them of doing certain things. That we have seen Chinese workers, we allege that Chinese workers have come into Indian power plants and other places to work, saying that they are not blue-collar workers, but they are workers of certain, they are officers of certain levels that come in. I'm trying to de-jargonize and speak.
Have you here and delighted for your benign presence and having such a wonderful session. Thank you so much. I would request the audience to please